نستكمل وإياكم الآن جدول أعمال المؤتمر مباشرة إلى عرض بعنوان الثورة الصناعية الرابعة والذكاء الاصطناعي، فرصة لرفع الكفاءة وخلق قيمة أكبر في قطاع صناعة اللوجستيات. يقدم هذا العرض رئيس قسم التحليل والعمليات بجامعة سنغافورة الوطنية البروفيسور Puay Guan.
Good afternoon, everybody. So today I'm going to talk about Industry 4.0 and the impact of Industry 4.0 on supply chain and logistics. And this is what I'm going to cover. So first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's Industry 4.0, and then some of the key trends and developments which I think affect various aspects of the logistics industry. So whether it's warehousing, whether it's transportation, whether it's manufacturing, and then we try to think a little bit about how it impacts companies and how it impacts industry. If you look at this chart, there's a lot of talk about digitalization. So let's have a little bit of context to what digitalization is about. Okay, if you look at this chart from McKinsey, in 1986, 99% of the world is analog, okay, and 1% is digital. So a very small part is a digital operation. But by 2007, the majority of the world is digital, and very little part of it is analog. So then what is the implication of this digitalization? Today we hear a lot about digitalization, we hear about digital transformation, we hear about industry transformation, right? But how does it actually impact our operations? How does it actually impact our company? So I'm going to step through some examples, and I will also try to build some context around the evolution of Industry 4.0 and how it actually starts with the era of computerization that started in the 1970s and 1980s. So let us look at this chart first, right? So I'm sure that we have seen variations of this chart, okay, which is on the first industrial revolution and the second and the third and the fourth. Okay, but if you think about the third industrial revolution, that was basically the era of computerization. And that era of computerization started in the 1970s with the PC business. Okay, so with PC, with the personal computer, and then with the internet and with communication bandwidth. So the impact of that, okay, which we are very familiar with, was the rise of computing power, and the rise of bandwidth, and the rise of internet connections. Okay, and moving on into the fourth industrial revolution, it is also about hardware, IoT, machines being connected online to the internet. So if we think about the transformation that happened on companies because of digitalization, then let us put a little bit of context to it with a case study, okay, first about digitalization that I think many people would be familiar with. So this is a case of Netflix. So when Netflix came along in the 1990s, okay, and it went public in 2002, okay, and Netflix of course has grown in the last 5-10 years, okay. So if you look at this chart shows the growth of the Netflix stock price. Okay, it has gone up exponentially in the last 5 years. On the other hand, if you look at their competitor, which is a retail store called Blockbuster, okay, Blockbuster actually went from a very large retail company, and from the time that Netflix went IPO, Blockbuster went down, okay, and eventually Blockbuster closed down, okay, and went bankrupt. And this is why you'll find that the share price is flat. Okay, basically the company closed down in 2010, okay, because it was not able to sustain the competition from the internet and e-commerce that Netflix brought about. Okay, so at the peak of the business for video rental, Blockbuster had 9,000 stores in the US in 2004. Okay, but from then on, okay, as Netflix went public and continued to grow, Blockbuster actually kept losing market share until such time that it was actually not able to sustain its operations and therefore closed down. So there are many examples like this, right? But this is a clear example of that digitalization impact on the information business, in this case of video rental or video streaming. So that impact of digitalization that we saw in the third industrial revolution, with the rise of the computing business, with the rise of internet business, led to changes in industry. And today what we are seeing, okay, is a continued transformation of industries. So e-commerce and the information business is only the first step, right, that we saw in the last 30 years. Okay, fast forward to today, what we are seeing is what they call cyber-physical systems, which are hardware integrated to the software, right, to the internet. And on top of that, the data that's being generated to create data analytics, to create new insights, and for us to make interpretations about trends, about options, about intelligence. Okay, so in that Industry 4.0, we are at the beginning of this cycle, where not only PCs are connected to internet, but on top of that, physical devices are being connected to internet as well. So what is the implication of that? Okay, what we are seeing is that it's a confluence of many different technologies coming together. Okay, it is about 3D printing, it is about Internet of Things, it is about data analytics, it is about robotics, it is also about the traditional e-commerce and the traditional collaboration platforms coming together. Okay, so there is no one single technology that defines Industry 4.0. Industry 4.0, on the other hand, is a combination of many, many different technologies coming together. Okay, and this is why it is very difficult to define, and this is why it is difficult for us to grasp what is Industry 4.0, because it is a combination of many different things coming together to form an integrated platform. So for today, I just want to share some ideas, okay, and some key trends, and I organize these key trends around 5-6 different topics, okay, and I'll step through each of these topics, okay, very quickly, okay, because I think that gives us an overview of how Industry 4.0 is affecting the supply chain and logistics industry. And if you look at this list itself, okay, some of this is technology related. So when we talk about blurring of industry lines, when we talk about technology changes global supply chain structures, it is about technology impact and technology disruption. But if we think about warehousing as a business, okay, so if you look at the fourth line, okay, warehousing grows as a business, okay, countries and companies are building up infrastructure, like logistics park for warehouse parks, like industrial parks, okay, for the growth of e-commerce, and probably in future for decentralized manufacturing. Okay, so there is a hardware and infrastructure component as well to Industry 4.0. We are not just living based on implementation of technology, but also on physical infrastructure coming in, okay, in order to support this information business. Okay, so when we look at the supply chain that is evolving, it is actually a combination of technology plus the physical infrastructure, and physical infrastructure changes and investments that will support these new technologies as well, okay, and vice versa. So the new technologies will also support the new investments in infrastructure and the new investments into logistics capabilities. Okay, so this news came out about a couple of years ago, okay, and Amazon is a big e-commerce company, but Amazon has actually diversified into information business, as we know. And Amazon, announced a couple of years ago that they will buy over Whole Foods, which is a grocery retail chain in the US, and they bought over the company for $13.7 billion. So it's a big acquisition, but what is interesting about this acquisition is 2 points. The first thing was Amazon goes into physical stores, right? So from what we thought of as a pure e-commerce play, it has started to diversify into retail. It has always been, okay, but this is one of the latest moves for Amazon, right? To actually diversify to physical retail stores that are supported by its e-commerce platform and supported by its data analytics capabilities. The second thing that is interesting about this is that after Amazon announced acquisition, the share price of its competitors dropped by $12 billion. So what does that mean? The competitors feared what they call the Amazon effect, right? So if you think about the Amazon effect or the Google effect or the Apple effect, it is basically a fear from management and from shareholders and from the board of directors, even from governments, that the new competitors come in, not from the traditional industry. Okay, so new competitors are not coming from a traditional industry. They are coming from companies outside of our industry. Sometimes we may know about these companies, sometimes we may not know about these companies. And that is the fear that management has, because it may be a blind spot. We may not have noticed that the competitor is coming, right? So when Apple makes an electric vehicle, or when Google makes an electric vehicle, that is a different industry from a traditional car manufacturing or automotive manufacturing industry. So we didn't notice that a competitor came from outside of our industry. Okay, so the fear of disruption is, where does the disruption come from? Could it be from a tech company? Could it be from a company that we didn't realize was innovating? Okay, so along this point, right? So when we talk about logistics, 2 years ago, Amazon said, I'm going to charter 20 planes, okay? And when I charter the 20 planes, I'm going to use it to run my air cargo delivery. So they actually chartered the planes, and they painted it Amazon Prime. So you see over here, it's called Prime Air. Okay, so they use it under their Amazon Prime delivery program, and they rent the planes to deliver their own cargo. Okay, initially they said, in fact, they still say, we are doing this to do our own business. We are doing this to run our own business. But this is business that is 20 cargo load, 20 planes of cargo load, okay, that is not outsourced. So a traditional e-commerce company, okay, e-commerce traditionally would outsource to FedEx or DHL or UPS for the delivery, which is what Amazon was doing. Okay, but when they charter their own planes, they basically took away some of their outsourcing business to FedEx or UPS, and they said we'll do it by ourselves. So the logistics companies themselves lose the business, in this case, for e-commerce or to a technology company. If we think one step further, is it possible that Amazon can offer, or an e-commerce company can offer logistics services to their, to other e-commerce companies? If my plane is 80% full, or my plane is 90% full, there's extra capacity for 10 or 20% in the plane. Can other customers come to Amazon and say, I want to load my cargo into your airplane? And most probably the answer is yes, right? Because it is incremental revenue. The cost of operating the plane is fixed, but every extra load of cargo which I carry is new business and new profit. So then this becomes, in a way, a threat, okay? Because from you take away the outsourcing, or you took away partly the outsourcing, at the same time, it can also be a competitor to the logistics company itself. Okay, and this is something that e-commerce companies are exploring, not only Amazon. So if you look at Alibaba, for example, Alibaba is also very, very big in logistics business today. They have formed joint ventures with logistics companies, essentially to run delivery for their own e-commerce cargo. Okay, then technology changes global supply chain structures. So what does that mean? So over here, I give two examples of Adidas, okay, which is a German shoe manufacturer. Okay, so the traditional supply chain of shoe manufacturing or textiles manufacturing is make in Asia, okay, or make in a low-cost country, and then ship to the markets of US or Europe. Okay, because I do outsourcing in a low-cost country, and then I will ship it right to the more developed country or to the richer country. And this supply chain structure has existed for 20 years with outsourcing. But a few years ago, and this is before the trade war, right? A few years ago, Adidas actually said, I'm going to open up, and they did. They opened up a new plant in the US. And they said, in order to make this plant competitive, I will use automation to run the factory. Okay, so this factory produces 500,000, 500,000 pairs of shoes every year, and it is highly automated. Because the labor cost in the US is higher, so they are able to use robotics in order to do mass production. Being in the US gives them the nearshoring advantage. So by doing nearshoring in the US, they are actually able to deliver to customers faster. They are able to respond to changes in customer fashion taste much quicker. So on the one hand, what we are seeing is that there is a trend, okay, of nearshoring that technology can bring about, especially using robotics or automation, that you can actually bring in manufacturing back to the more developed countries. Okay, using technology. So this is on the mass market side, okay, that we can think about mass market manufacturing using automation. On the other article, what we see is that Adidas, again the same company, did another thing in the US, again 2 years ago, and they said, we are going to make 3D printed shoes. So they formed a joint venture with a 3D printing company in the US. Okay, and this joint venture company would produce 3D printed shoes. Okay, so what is the idea of this? The idea of 3D printed shoes is that they are customized shoes. Okay, so somebody with, with feet deformity, the feet is, a little bit off shape that cannot wear the normal shoe, or somebody with flat foot, for example, that needs special made shoes, would then use this company, okay, use this Adidas joint venture to customize each pair of shoe for them. Okay, so in this case, 3D printing actually allows that mass customization of the shoe for individuals. Each pair is very expensive, right? Each pair is $300 or $400. Okay, but it is affordable if it's a custom-made pair, right? For custom use. Okay, $300, $400 per pair. Right, so what we can see is that technology actually allows us to do nearshoring, and in two different ways. So the first way is it goes into the mass manufacturing market, and the second way is that we are going into custom production, customized shoes, customized prototypes, okay, that are individualized for individual markets. Okay, and again, both are trends that actually lead to some form of nearshoring, okay, which then, of course, leads to reduction in shipping, okay, and to some extent, a reduction in some of the transportation as well. So what are the logistics companies doing about it? So again, these are recent trends. Okay, so in June this year, FedEx says, I'm not going to do any more business with Amazon. And they announced it. publicly. Why do they say that? Because they fear that Amazon will be a competitor for them, right? Just now we saw that Amazon chartered 20 planes to run their own logistics, to run their own air freight delivery. So FedEx says we are not going to do air freight business or delivery business for Amazon. Okay, and they rather build up other e-commerce companies. And on this side, what you see is UPS. Okay, so in the last few years, UPS says, oh, maybe in future, not today, but in 10, 15, 20 years, 25 years time, the volume of air freight will reduce because we do not need to ship spare parts. Remember just now we talked about 3D printing. So if 3D printing can allow us to make custom parts, if 3D printing can allow us to print spare parts, we do not need to keep inventory of spare parts. So if we do not have to keep inventory of spare parts, if we do not need to ship the spare parts by air freight, and today that's a very, very big lucrative business for the freight forwarders and for the airlines, okay, shipping of spare parts because it's expedited delivery. Okay, so in industries like oil and gas, industries like medical, industries like aerospace, spare part business for storage and spare parts business for delivery, okay, is very, very big business. 10, 15 years, 20 years later, if spare parts volume decreases because of 3D printing, air freight business could be affected. So UPS says, we prepare now for the future by building 3D printing centers and integrate this into our own delivery network. So we will do printing and then we'll do last mile delivery by trucking to the customer site rather than doing air freight to the customer site. Of course, it's very starting point, okay, these are trials, it's very starting point, but these are ways that companies and large companies actually prepare and innovate for the future. Okay, and there are many, many examples like this. I just share a couple of examples in the logistics industry. So we talk about e-commerce, and we talk about 3D printing, we talk about nearshoring. Okay, so all these lead to changes in supply chain structures. With changes in supply chain structures, it is also the case that warehousing and last mile delivery, which is a last mile transportation, okay, trucking, would also become more important. And this is why you find that, you know, Amazon and Alibaba and all those e-commerce companies actually do a lot of investments into warehouse footprint and warehouse network so that they can provide 1 or 2 day deliveries. So Amazon Prime customer may get a 1 day delivery, or it may get a 2-hour delivery or half-day delivery. And this is only possible because it has many, many warehouses throughout the US that positions the stock or the goods and the items close to the customers, right, close to the cities, so that when the customers require it or when the customers places an order, those inventory can be delivered to the customer in a very short period of time. Same thing in China. In China, the delivery lead time for Alibaba's customers or for the big e-commerce companies could be 2 days, could also be 1 day. In some cases, within the big cities, also half a day. Okay, and to do that, it means that there's a lot of requirement for both the warehousing as well as the last mile distribution, last mile delivery, and optimization capabilities for delivering to individual houses and individual units. Then the fourth trend that I wanted to talk about, right? So sharing economy goes into e-warehousing. So as our capacity grows, is there a possibility that we would have underutilization of facilities? So again, companies start to think about how can I balance out the needs between customer fulfillment, okay, or fast delivery or good customer service versus asset utilization. So if I build warehouses to be close to customer, is there a possibility that eventually is there a possibility that there may be too much capacity, or can I share my capacity with other users? Okay, so what we saw with sharing economy with ride sharing, for example, at Uber, or with accommodation or housing like Airbnb, okay, has actually started to go into the B2B space. And again, in the logistics space, companies are looking at the use of a sharing economy platform as ways in which to become more efficient and ways in which they can use other companies' warehouses or other companies' assets in order to provide a better service for their customers without having to do their own investment. So I give a couple of examples here. So this company called Lockup is actually is a European-based company. It's based in Switzerland, but most of the owners are actually from Germany. Okay, so they have done very well in Germany with with creating platforms, okay, for use of applications and some form of sharing, okay, warehouse. This company called Flex is in the US, and again, Flex has done very well in the US, okay, by providing a platform for warehouses to be shared for unused capacity. And it's actually one of the fastest growing B2B sharing economy companies in logistics today. How about delivery? So big companies also do this. So a couple of years ago, Walmart says, I'm going to use sharing economy into my own operations. So Walmart has got 1 million employees. They have many, many people that work in their retail store. And the retail, the employees of Walmart, many of them drive. So Walmart says, can I use my employees to deliver packages for my e-commerce customers? So they launched this initiative, and this initiative is quite clever because it makes use of their existing employees, right? So if the existing employees are going home, on the way home, can they deliver e-commerce for Walmart customers? And the answer is yes. Some of them are willing to do that. So if Walmart says I pay to my employees, the employee gets extra income. So employees are not doing this for free, right? Employees get extra income. They are happy as well because they get extra income. It is on the way. I make a short detour to deliver, but I get extra income, so the employee is happy, has better satisfaction. On the other hand, Walmart is actually shifting its outsourcing away, right? So traditionally, it may be doing its own delivery. It may be owning its own trucks to do delivery. It may be outsourcing some of this delivery to other logistics companies. Okay, so in-house and outsourcing still continues, but now I can tap on extra pool of people, like my employees, to actually help me with the delivery. So that becomes a new method of distribution, okay, which actually can help to increase the efficiency. So in the past, Walmart may outsource, but some of this outsourcing business is no longer outsourced to a traditional logistics company, but is outsourced to their employees. So from Walmart point of view, they may still pay the same amount of money, right? If it's $10 per delivery, they may still pay their employees $10 for each parcel. But this $10 per parcel is going to the employee and not going to the logistics company, which they used to outsource to. Okay, so there is a change again in that distribution structure. Okay, so I'm just going to share with you an example of this is called Robot. Okay, so the company is actually Lowe's, and they are based in San Francisco, and they have 11 stores over there. And they said we are going to use automation and AI in retail and in customer service. So we've been seeing we think about robotics and automation more from the point of view of manufacturing, right? But in this case, what they have done is they actually put the robots out into the store, okay? And the robots actually will guide customers to the site. So if a customer makes an inquiry and says, where's my, where is sugar being stored, where's sugar being sold, okay? The robot will actually bring them to the sugar section. So it actually makes the customer service better. And at the same time, the robot actually does stock take, right, while it is moving around. Okay, and this is of course a combination of different technologies, right, which includes your search computer display, includes voice recognition, okay, doesn't always work, but also includes voice recognition, also includes sensors for the robots to navigate within the store, okay. So this also helps them to create real-time data as this robot moves around. I do not know whether I can play the video. Hi, is it possible to play the YouTube video? Sorry, that's not the link that I wanted, but it's fine, it's fine. Okay, this is actually, this is not the link that I wanted, but it's fine, okay. Yeah, I think I may have made a mistake. Sorry about that, yeah. Yeah, so anyway, this is warehouse automation, okay, which is kind of related, right? I wanted to show the storefront one, but this is warehouse automation, okay. So actually, this is a Alibaba example. Amazon does that as well, where you have actually warehouse robots that bring the goods to you for picking and packing. Okay, so that's an example of warehouse automation. With technology, what does it mean for us? So I just want to leave some thoughts behind, right? As we think about, so what we saw earlier was transformation of industries and transformation of companies. Then what does it mean for us, for workers, for employees, right? For people in the companies. So over here, I have an example, right? Where we look at, taxi drivers. Okay, so we know about Uber, right? Using ride sharing, but if you look at a taxi driver in London, traditionally a taxi driver in London spends 2 years to study the London roads. Okay, they have to take an exam to pass and get a license. Okay, so they have to take an exam to pass the exam. They have to take an exam. And to pass the exam, okay, and many people fail in a couple of times before they finally pass the exam to be able to drive a taxi in London, okay, they have to study, okay, so they literally memorize the maps. So this was traditionally how taxi drivers gain competitive advantage, right, or gain experience. But with GPS, okay, so of course with GPS, then does it mean that we do not actually require so much memory? So we may know that when we drive by GPS, we just follow the instructions. We don't even remember the roads. So it happened to me before that I'm driving, I'm going to the dentist. So we seldom go to dentists, right? So I'm going to the dentist, and when I went to the dentist, I was using my GPS. My phone died on me. My phone, my phone battery went flat, okay, and my phone died. So the GPS was cut off, and I lost my way because I don't go to the dentist often, so I don't remember where is the dentist, right? So we rely less on physical memory and we rely more on computer aids, right? The computer tools to help us. So to some extent, that is also a de-skilling process because it makes experience of the worker and makes experience of the employee less important. Okay, when you can automate the process and you can actually get the computer to define the work for you. So then what does it mean for us? Okay, are we just going to follow orders from a computer algorithm? Right? Or are we going to co-create or do something more? So let me elaborate a little bit on this. Right? So if we use computer algorithms, okay, actually the computer algorithms could also be pretty good. Right? So this is an example, right, of a warehouse operation. Okay, already happened. Okay, a couple of years ago, Hitachi and Japanese companies use algorithm to allocate jobs to their workers, and some of the workers actually like it, right? Because computer algorithms are not biased, so they go according to certain rules. Okay, you don't need to worry that your boss doesn't like you and gives you the lousy jobs. Okay, you don't need to worry that the boss may give you a delivery that is far away, for example. Okay, so with certain rules, you can use a computer algorithm to allocate work, right? So it becomes a AI manager for the workers. Okay, but when we do that, okay, so some people may like it, but when we do that, actually our experience doesn't really count, right? Because it can be, if we allocate a job, that job can be allocated to anybody. It can be allocated to person A, it can be allocated to person B, it can be allocated to another new person that joins the company, in 1 month's time. Okay? So in that case, the human experience and the human capability to do something value add is actually much reduced and much less, okay, compared to what it used to be. So that is the bad scenario, where the future of work, we become dummies, okay, and we are relying on algorithm to help us. Okay, the other good way of thinking about it is, are we able to move up the value chain? So if we are able to move up the value chain, then we are actually able to use algorithms to help us, right? So using algorithms to help us, what does that mean? In this case, is what we think of as co-creation. So we use our experience to define the problem. Algorithms from the AI, algorithms from the computer, machine learning, helps us to define and search for these patterns. But with our experience, we will look at whether these patterns make sense, and we will use IT and we'll use AI as a tool to help us become more efficient. So that's a concept of co-creation, where actually you have human beings using their experience and their deep knowledge of society or deep knowledge of business, and tapping on computer tools, AI tools, algorithms, to actually help them make decisions, okay, but they will make the final decision, okay? We'll use algorithms to give us suggestions, but human experience helps us to make the final decision. So that is another way of looking at it. And that is probably obviously what we want to aspire to when it comes to creating a value-add component for human beings in an AI world or in an automated world, where we are using computers and AI to do simple tasks or to create efficiency, but we are using human experience to define what we want the computer to do. We are using human experience to decide, okay, what makes sense, what suggestions or what decisions make sense, and we are using human experience to integrate different functional areas together that AI doesn't easily do well. Okay, so with that, I will leave you, I'll leave you that parting thought for what we would want to do as human beings in a world of Industry 4.0 and AI. Right, thank you very much. Shukran.